Welcome to this Legal Futures webinar in association with First for Lawyers. I'm Neil Rose, I'm the editor of Legal Futures, and the webinar and the white paper we'll be talking about are called Trust Me, I'm a Lawyer, Marketing Legal Services in 2023. This year's First for Lawyers white paper is as timely as ever, bringing together two significant and interlocking trends. First is the reshaping of the personal injury market, brought about by the launch of the official injury claim portal, meaning that many PI firms that previously saw whiplash claims as their bread and butter are now looking to increase their share of other areas of PI work. Second is the broader battle for clients becoming the broader issue rather of the battle for clients becoming a harder and more sophisticated task against the background of consumers being encouraged by the legal regulators to shop around more. A key lever that the regulators are using for this is to make it easier for consumers to compare legal services providers. So you'll know that we had the requirement for firms to publish price and service information in certain areas of practice from December 2019, I think it was, and work is currently ongoing on what quality indicators could be used, with a particular focus on review and comparison websites like Trustpilot and Review Solicitors. So this is much more than just an issue for personal injury firms, and it is this broader picture that we'll be mainly focusing on today, although we will have touch on what's been happening in the PI market. We have an hour, and the first half of it will be Andy Cullick, Head of Marketing at First for Lawyers, talking you through the white paper and the findings of the specially commissioned survey into how law firms have responded to the PI reforms and the changing marketing demands. We will then have a panel discussion with Nick Berry, who's a senior litigator at Yes Personal Injury Lawyers, Michael Hannay, the co-founder and CEO of Review Solicitors, Jenny Baldwin, Managing Director of Essential Legal Services at Slater & Gordon, and Nick Delaney, Head of Business Development at First for Lawyers. You'll receive a link to the report and a recording of the webinar, so you can watch it again and again at your leisure, which I'm sure everyone will want to. You'll get that by email after we finished. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass over to Andy to kick us off. And please put any questions you have in the Q&A box.
Thank you, Neil. Good morning, everyone. We could move to the next slide, please, Rebecca. I'll get started. How do you lose £1 billion in 10 seconds? No, I'm not talking about what happens to the stock market every time the government makes a new fiscal policy announcement. Next slide, please. I'm talking about what happened when this man described his company's sherry decanter as total crap and said his earrings were cheaper than an M&S prawn sandwich, but probably wouldn't last as long. Gerald Ratner made his now infamous speech back in 1991. It ultimately cost him his business and a rumoured £1 billion. Ratner is a classic example in where he destroyed his company's reputation and trust in his brand in an instant with a throwaway remark. Fast forward 30 years and reputation and trust is still as important as ever. However, in this digital age, reputations can be built and destroyed more easily than ever before. Next slide, please. Thank you for joining us today. As Neil alluded to, we are launching our latest white paper, Trust Me, I'm a Lawyer, Legal Marketing 2023. Now, the white paper itself covers a wide range of insights and topics. It looks how firms have diversified their way out of the PI sector following recent reforms and offers various hints, tips and advice on different marketing tactics that will keep you on the front foot moving forward. But I'd like to focus a little bit on trust. Why? Because trust is intrinsically linked to everything we do as businesses and individuals. Next slide, please. Ask yourself, why do consumers need a lawyer? Well, it boils down to trust. People need a lawyer because they either need to trust someone with the most important things in their lives, or they have had their trust broken by someone or something. Be it the NHS they trusted to make them better has made them poorly. Be it their employer that they trusted to offer a safe working environment that may have let them down and caused them injury. Or it could be trusting somebody to produce the right will that ensures their loved ones are taken care of once they are gone. Or it could be the purchase of one of the biggest assets we buy in our lives, a house, making sure it goes as smoothly as possible and there aren't any surprises further down the line. Yes, having the biggest marketing budget and the best known brand will certainly help you get in front of potential clients. Equally, having the best performing website in the world will get you to the top of Google ranking for the search terms that you want and increase your prospective audience. But when it comes down to it, choosing a lawyer, you'll find trust at the heart of it. The reality is trust and reputation is becoming even more important. LSE research found that trust, not price, was one of the key factors for consumers when deciding deciding which lawyer to choose. Trust gives consumers the confidence that you will deliver on what is promised, and trust grows trust via positive reviews, which foster more trust in what you have to offer. Or how long would you keep a client if they didn't trust that you had their best interests at heart? Next slide, please. But also, speaking as a marketeer, trust is increasingly integral in all the marketing activity that we do. To rank well on Google search, the content you produce needs to be seen as trustworthy. When looking at wider marketing activity, you will find that independent tools that highlight what customers think of you will help drive better performance of your marketing campaigns and activity. So today, I want to tell you a little bit about how you can be using trust to benefit your business. And by the end of this session, I will hopefully have told you a few tips on how you can improve your website, create more effective marketing campaigns, generate better quality and cheaper leads, and ultimately win more business. Next slide, please. One of the best ways to showcase that you're trustworthy or credible is through customer reviews and testimonials. This is nothing new, and it's been something organizations have been doing for years. But more recently, there's been an explosion in online review services and platforms. Next slide, please. One of the key considerations all businesses need to understand is the increasing popularity and use of these review platforms that consumers use when making decisions. It's said to be that 9 out of 10 read reviews before making a purchase decision. What's more, people are putting more trust in what they read in these reviews, with almost 90% of people surveyed valuing them as much as a personal recommendation. Next slide, please. However, the legal sector remains fairly cool about using review services. Our own research for this white paper, and actually the poll that we did at the start of this session, mirrored this, said that less than 40% of firms are monitoring what their clients are saying about them, with very few of those doing it on any great level of detail. Next slide, please. What's more, over 60% of those firms we surveyed said they didn't actually respond to any of the reviews they received. This suggests law firms aren't interested in what their clients are potentially saying about them in the public domain, and leaving this unchecked has the potential to be very damaging to your brand. Next slide, please. Our research also identified that there wasn't much appetite to particularly encourage clients to leave reviews and feedback about the services they received, nor did they use a dedicated platform to capture any of these customer reviews. What's more, not many firms felt the customer reviews offered much in the way of helping businesses identify if they had any internal customer service issues, or felt they were useful tools to help them motivate staff. All of this is at odds with what consumers actually tell us they want. Next slide, please. As I previously mentioned, we've seen an explosion in the use of customer review websites where consumers are researching before making decisions. A YouGov poll showed that 3/4 of those people that use review sites found them a useful tool when looking for legal services. What's more, with consumers shopping around more before choosing a lawyer, it's important that you're thinking about how you get your brand positioned in these different channels. Let's face it, how often do you yourselves refer to reviews when considering a purchase? They are increasingly ingrained within the daily lives, be it embedded within websites we visit or seen within marketing material that we consume. Next slide, please. If we look at the wider world, we can see the results of review platforms are highly visible in wider marketing activity, not just online within people's websites. We're seeing them used as trust signals to reinforce why you should choose them across everything, including TV adverts, newspaper adverts, and on things like bus and outdoor advertising. It's almost become the expectation that you advertise your star rating. Next slide, please. So why have they become so important? Well, one of the fastest ways to tank your trust and credibility is by trying to pull the proverbial wool over your prospect's eyes. Independent review platforms give a sense of trust and support that what you are saying is genuine and impartial. Ratner's was widely known to sell jewellery that was at the cheaper end of the market and, well, recognised to be slightly crap. But to stand up and say that was seen as a direct insult to their customers. Next slide, please. So are lawyers really against reviews? Our survey suggests not many firms are engaging with review websites, but at the same time, previous research has highlighted that the majority of law firms get business from recommendations. Therefore, I pose the question, what is a review if it isn't a recommendation? Next slide, please. Our research also suggested that 1 in 5 solicitors felt that many reviews that were published were fake. Yes, reviews can be open to abuse, and I've seen more than one example in our own sector. I've seen one firm where they've got various members of staff to leave Google reviews about their own business. Another firm was promoting 5-star reviews they'd received via Facebook on the homepage of their website, but when you went on to look at their Facebook page, they didn't have any positive reviews at all. The reality is, fakery is really quite easy to spot, and if you participate in it, it will cause more damage than good for your brand. If you use the right platform, then it offers openness and transparency, which delivers strong trust signals that can make people feel better about doing business with you. Next slide, please. If you're a customer visiting a website, which of these 2 presentations of customer reviews work best to convince you they are genuine, open, and honest reviews? The best way to do this is use a recognised and trusted platform with clear governance and guidelines on how their service works. If you can't trust the reviews on your site, they can't trust you, full stop. Next slide, please. There is also a hesitance for firms to adopt proactive review strategy because they feel that the only people to leave reviews are those that are unhappy with the service they've received, and there is no point attracting unwanted criticism in a public domain. The reality is, 63% of online users have written positive reviews compared to only 32% of online users that have written negative reviews. The reality is, though, those positive and negative reviews have a really strong sentiment on what people do when they want to engage with a firm, with 94% of consumers saying a positive review is going to make them more likely to use a business, whilst 92% saying a negative review is likely to put them off that business. And in fact, the star rating itself has a big impact, with 48% of those surveyed saying that an average rating under 4 stars would turn them off, and only 19% of users would probably consider using a business with a star rating of 3 or less. What's more, timeliness is important. 73% of consumers said that they would only pay attention to reviews written in the last month, and 50% saying they look at the last 2 weeks. Next slide, please. There is often a sense as well amongst lawyers that the consumer isn't necessarily right. If they're unhappy about a service, it's because they don't understand the complexity or nuances of the law being dealt with. There was a rather headline-grabbing case last year where a law firm sued a client, successfully I might add, for leaving a negative 1-star review about them on Trustpilot. The client accused them of being another scam solicitor and a total waste of money. Now, given this particular firm's fondness for litigation, I don't want to get into the detailed mechanics of this case, whether it was right or wrong. And they may have won the lawsuits at the time, but what was the longer-term impact on their business? Following the attention of the case review, their Trustpilot page was bombarded with 1-star reviews, which have since been removed. Many of these reviews were in support of the person leaving the original 1-star review, but there were also numerous reviewers alleging that the firm's website was violating GDPR regulations. It got to the point that Trustpilot had to intervene and put a note to say if it only published genuine reviews from genuine clients of a company. So regardless of the outcome of the case, I would urge you to think very carefully of what action you take if you receive a negative review. Was this firm's actions rightly justifiable, or was their response too heavy-handed, resulting in more detrimental impact on the reputation of that firm in the long term? Next slide, please. With poor reviews, often the issue is more down to a breakdown in communication that is causing the negative perception of the law firm as opposed to an actual issue. The reality is certain aspects of law can take a while to resolve. And when I was looking through various examples of unhappy reviews, the common theme throughout was poor communication. When I was doing my own analysis of how law firms use review platforms, I was shocked to see how many simply do nothing at all. By that, they don't get engaged with any of the reviews left, either positive or negative. In this example on here, it's a genuine law firm in the industry. A staggering 23% of the reviews they've received are 1 star. And despite the profile claiming that 35% of negative reviews are responded to, I couldn't find a single review that had been responded to in the last 6 months. Most of the complaints they received were about poor communication, and by subsequently ignoring the complaints, they were just compounding the situation further. Anyone looking at this firm would feel that they simply didn't give a damn about their customers. Next slide, please. The reality is the world doesn't smell of roses. Sooner or later, somebody will have a beef with you, and they will vent about it either directly to you or through a third-party site. There is literally nothing you can do to avoid the situation, and anything you try and do to bury a bad review is as sleazy as it sounds. If someone leaves a negative feedback or a bad review, think of it as an opportunity to demonstrate superior customer service. Be honest with yourself. Does the disgruntled customer have a fair point? Is there something you could have done better? Was it your fault? Whatever the situation, be sure to handle it promptly, honestly, and transparently. This might mean responding to a negative comment and sharing your side of the story in an objective and reasonable manner before moving on. Next slide, please. At First for Lawyers, we've always looked at measuring customer satisfaction across our business, but we started using Trustpilot about 7 years ago, and this week we hit our 15,000th review. We've tested, developed, and refined how we use it to collect reviews over the years, but some of the top tips I'd like to share today are as follows. Automation is very much the key. Every client we engage with receives an email automatically asking them to leave a review with us. We've automated this to ensure that reviews are constantly asked for, and it keeps our review profile fresh. They're also told by the advisor that they've spoken to that we'll be contacting them for a review as well. When we send out the message, we try and frame it as positively as possible to say that we want to hear about their feedback, because this helps improve the level of reviews that we get as well. Trustpilot is a fantastic tool as it enables us to quickly and easily identify any potential issues and generally allows us to resolve them before they get out of hand. One of our internal KPIs is that if we do receive a negative review, we aim to receive an investigated response within 24 hours. Even if we think that the review is unjustified, we'll leave a calm and measured response and look to take the conversation with the client offline. You have to know when the best time to walk away, otherwise it could just descend into an online argument. Our customer review strategy is integrated into the entire business. All reviews go to our SMT. We circulate summary reviews to all staff in the business twice a week, and we run a competition to keep everyone invested in what we're trying to achieve. The top achievers in our team with the highest Trustpilot scores each month win prizes. We run more detailed customer satisfaction surveys outside the Trustpilot platform when clients' cases have settled. This enables us to get a picture of end-to-end performance of the business. We've seen client engagement grow through the Trustpilot platform over the years, and more recently, we're now hitting 20% of our clients leaving reviews for us, which is above Trustpilot's own benchmark for performance. What's more, we can actually measure the value of Trustpilot within our business because we can see that on average, 1,000 people a month view our profile in Trustpilot, and we can measure the hundreds of leads and converted inquiries that come from actually appearing on this platform. Next slide, please. Using customer reviews is a brilliant way to send out a positive and independent trust signal about your business, but there are other elements of trust that you need to consider within your marketing strategy. Let's have a look at how trust can help improve the ranking and performance of your websites. Next slide, please. At the very basic level, trust is a key element that helps you get your website ranking well. Search Engine Land publishes an SEO periodic table, as you can see on screen, which offers a very neat way of showing what you should be focusing on in your web strategy. Next slide, please. There are several factors that go into establishing a site that both users and search engines deem trustworthy. Just to frame what we consider to be trustworthy, think about your own user experience of your own website or websites you visit on a daily basis. The first question you need to ask yourself is, do I trust this website enough to either share personal data about myself or something financially valuable such as a credit card, and be confident that it's in good hands? And then have a look at those websites that you've all seen before where blog articles or content is poorly written and rushed, full of typos and mistakes, links don't work, and there's all these small signs that make you think, well, something's not right here. I don't really feel comfortable about leaving details with this site. Imagine if you're looking for legal advice and you're faced with a website with a lot of typos and links aren't working and the basics aren't right. Will that give you the confidence that legal advice you're about to get is any good? Next slide, please. You also build trust by creating an appropriate environment. It surprises me that I have to say this, but it's essential that your website is set up correctly and you're using the right technology. In our research for this white paper, 84% of respondents said that online was a tactic seen as important within their business, with 23% saying it was the single most effective. However, the majority of respondents, some 52%, said mobile first was either unused or not an important in their marketing. I was as stunned as finding this out as Liz Truss was when she discovered that we as a country import 2/3 of our cheese. I can't believe I'm saying this in 2022, but if you're not using a mobile first website in your firm, then you may as well consign your web strategy to the nearest bin and turn off your website. To that end, if you haven't deployed things like SSL, then you're still living in the dark ages, as this sends out an active antitrust signal about what your website is about. It goes without question to say that when looking at best practice, please make sure your website is being built as a responsive, mobile-first, fast website and offers visitors peace of mind with the right security signals. If you aren't doing this, make sure it's done as a priority. Next slide, please. For years now, it's been known about the importance of expertise, authority, and trust when producing content for your website, otherwise known as EAT by Google. This is especially important in sites that Google classify as your money, your life, which are generally niches found around financial services, medical, or legal advice. Next slide. This was underpinned by Google's recent algorithm update, creatively called Helpful Content Update. This rolled out in late August and early September and was designed to reward websites that promote helpful content that was written for humans as opposed to search engines. As such, you need to be ensuring you produce content that helps users more. Google said that this was an ongoing effort to reduce low-quality content and make it easier to find content that felt authentic and useful in search. In short, searchers were getting frustrated with landing pages that may have been ranking well, but the results weren't designed for the reader. Typically, these were websites that either aggregated information from other websites or didn't actually provide an answer to the question that was asked. Next slide, please. For example, Paddington 3, there's been a lot of press about this being released, this next movie being released. And previously, you could have probably ranked quite well if you'd written quite heavily around the topic of Paddington. However, if somebody asked the question, when will the new Paddington 3 movie be released, and you didn't provide the answer with a particular date, whilst you might have ranked previously, you will now not rank. But what's more, Google may now, whilst they may have previously downranked the individual page, it will now penalise the entire site because it's suggesting you're not an authority on this subject matter. As such, it's essential that when you're creating pages, that you need to ensure you are answering the question that the user will have asked. Otherwise, there's no point creating that content at all. For example, if someone asks, how much does it cost for conveyancing? and you produced a well-crafted and expertly written article on all the ins and outs of what conveyancing is and what's involved in it, but don't actually ask the question of how much it costs, then not only are you going to see that page tumble down the rankings, but you're likely to see the entire site start to suffer. Therefore, to be seen as an authority on what you're talking about, you need to get to the information in front of the potential audience much more quickly and ensure they trust you have the right answers and are upfront with them. Next slide, please. You also build trust by showcasing that others trust what you're talking about. And this can be done in two ways within your website. Firstly, are people engaging with the content that you're producing? And secondly, are people telling other people what you have on your website is good content? Next slide, please. High quality web pages should elicit meaningful interactions with users. Aspects of those interactions may be quantified through engagement metrics such as how long they spend on your site. Do they bounce off to another website? What's the average duration that they're on there for? Basically, the longer they spend on your site and the more of the content they read shows that you're offering both trustworthy and helpful content. Quality content and user experience are big parts of SEO, and they should be prioritized as part of your strategy. You can encourage more engagement by keeping users' intent in mind, introducing useful content, and improve internal linking, among other tactics. For example, again, if you're looking at conveyancing, and all you've written is a single page that talks about why a consumer should choose you, this isn't going to drive you to the top of Google. However, if you create a hub of useful content to include as much information about what conveyancing entails, then you're going to see better engagement with your website, which in turn sends positive signals to Google and what you've produced, telling them what you've produced is trustworthy. Next slide, please. The next aspect is essentially what we know as link building. Google have basically said, hey, if we're going to recommend this content to people, we need to make sure it's trustworthy, authoritative, and an expert's written it. Google primarily assesses authority on a per-page basis and looks at how many other sites are linking to it. In essence, other sites are reviewing your website and saying, come and look at this, it's good quality and trustworthy information that you will want to read. Link building is nothing new, but the style and strategy has changed. There's previously been a lot of emphasis on volume of links that your website receives, but increasingly it's becoming more about the relevance and the quality of those sites linking to you. Trust builds trusts. If you're getting links from trustworthy sources, it's going to benefit your website. Next slide, please. You build trust using trust signals. Many websites and e-commerce retailers particularly use trust signals to put prospective customers at ease. But what are trust signals? How do they work? What makes them so effective? And perhaps most importantly, how and when should you use them? Next slide, please. Trust signals are elements that are often displayed on websites to help customers feel more secure in the decision to engage with a specific business or buy a product or service. Some trust signals are little more than logos that offer reassurance that a business or their website belongs to a certain trade organization, where others are proof of business's conduct or trustworthiness. Some, like the SRA logo, are requirements that law firms have to display. But these trust signals all perform the same function, making prospective customers feel better about doing business with that company because it's trusted by independent third parties. Next slide, please. Some trust signals are instantly recognizable, where others are more subtly implied messages, such as why to choose your business in a graphical format. Among the most common of these trust signals are the guarantee. These trust signals can be immensely powerful, and they offer peace of mind to the consumer. They assure prospective customers that in the event that there is an issue or the customer changes their mind, there is a guarantee to fall back on. Next slide, please. Similarly, media mentions can be used as a trust signal. These are especially common among startups and younger businesses still growing. Their association with well-known media brands serves as an implied trust signal, hopefully reassuring prospective customers that they're making a good choice. Next slide. So what makes trust signals so effective? Understandably, the primary focus of most trust signals is the comfort and familiarity that many common signals offer. However, another reason for trust signals power is that we just want to find something that we can believe in. Cognitive bias has a major impact on our behaviour. If we've already decided that we want to do something, anything that will make us feel better about our decision can be a powerful motivator. This can be illustrated by the effect known as zero risk bias, which makes people prefer scenarios and situations in which there is complete elimination of risk, such as an ironclad money-back guarantee and no obligation-free trials. Confirmation bias is another powerful motivator that can be amplified by trust signals. If you're buying a £20 t-shirt online, then you're probably less concerned about customer reviews about the business itself, but will be far more driven by big messages such as free delivery and free returns. Next slide, please. So does this work? Well, we've seen some really interesting performance stats when it comes to looking at trust signals within our own marketing activity at First for Lawyers. Firstly, we understand that users do seek independent validation. Over the course of this year, 46% of people who've searched First for Lawyers reviews have clicked through to read reviews on Trustpilot, compared to 26% who went directly to our website. They are looking for that independent validation. People seeking reviews are also more engaged and ready to make a decision. Google's own insights suggest that less than half of people who search click on a website. However, when we see from our own stats, when the phrase review is used within the search term, we're seeing an active click rate in excess of 70%. They also deliver better quality and cheaper inquiries. People looking for reviews are not only further down the decision-making funnel, but they tend to be of better quality. Firstly, we can see that visitors to our website that have been to Trustpilot first are twice as likely to convert into leads. What's more, the cost of generating these leads from Trustpilot are 70 to 80% cheaper than what we see from things like paid search. Secondly, we convert more review-related paid search inquiries into active clients. The net result is that a paid search lead containing the word review converts into a client 40% more effectively than a brand search alone, and on average is 15% cheaper to generate. In 2018, we saw search terms that included review or reviews accounting for 4% of our overall brand-orientated search leads. Since then, we've seen a steady increase in the number of review-related searches, and they now account for 14% of all our brand-orientated search. It doesn't end there. Next slide, please. One of the initial attractions of subscribing to a service like Trustpilot was that it started populating our star ratings in our search engine results. As you can see in the example, it gives you more presence and exposure and sends a naturally positive message about you that supports the cognitive bias that I discussed earlier. We can see that when star ratings appear in our paid adverts, that we see a 13% increase in the click-through rate and a 1.5% reduction in the cost per click. We've also been building these trust signals into wider aspects of our own marketing activity. Not only do we include our Trustpilot scores on our TV advertising, but we've also been testing how we use them across our website. This is a continuous activity that helps us optimize the performance of the website. Next slide, please. This is what our homepage used to look like. And in a test on our next slide, please, we've made some changes about bringing the Trustpilot score to make it more visualized. And we graphicalized a number of the key trust messages. The net result was a significant increase in the number of conversions we received off that page and almost a 200% increase in the volumes of leads from that page itself. On the next page example, next slide, please. We already had Trustpilot in the hero area. If we go to the next slide, we can see we magnified this by pulling it through a carousel of actual Trustpilot reviews from clients, which were verified by Trustpilot to give added trust. The net result of this was a 70% increase in the conversion rate of this page. Next slide, please. The long and short of it is trust delivers quality. Our wider marketing strategy at First for Lawyers has been about presenting ourselves as a trustworthy and credible brand. And that playbook has a net benefit on the end result of what we're delivering to our panel firms. In a declining market, we are utilising trust to reinforce the credibility of our brand, and it helps us deliver growth in not only our market share, but also in the quality of what we're sending our panel firms. Next slide, please. So if you only take 3 things away today, my recommendations are: be proactive when it comes to customer reviews and make sure that you're not only actively managing those reviews and engaging in them, but you're utilising them in your marketing activity. Even if your marketing resource is limited, I assure you that implementing these 3 simple things will help get you off to a great start, providing a strong foundation for building trust with potential clients. Next slide, please. In conclusion, trust is vital for a number of reasons. Google is increasingly demanding that you showcase how trustworthy you are, otherwise they will penalise the performance of your website. Customers are increasingly seeking independent validation of your trust credentials. You can just tell them you're trustworthy. You can't just tell them you're trustworthy. They want to hear from people telling them themselves. Use the right trust signals on your website and marketing, and you will see improved performance. There are different ways to demonstrate trust, and those of you thinking that you will build trust when you speak to a potential client are potentially missing the point. If you don't show how you are a trusted lawyer upfront, visually and through messaging, then you may never get to speak to that client in the first place. Next slide, please. Trust. It cannot be bought, forced or demanded. You have to earn it. You can have it, but not hold it. It can take you years to gain, and just like Ratner's, it can be lost in seconds. And it's the single most important element of any transaction or relationship. Every day of our lives, we're putting trust in other people. It is a critical part of all interactions that we have as humans. It also plays an integral role in how we market ourselves as a business. Ladies and gentlemen, what have you done to demonstrate that your business can be trusted? I thank you for your time, and will now hand back to Neil for a wider panel discussion.
Thank you, Andy. If I can ask the rest of the panel to unmute themselves and put them on screen. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. We've had 2 or 3. There's one I will deal with now, just a question of what DCT stands for. That's kind of the official speak, if you like. It stands for Digital Comparison Tools, and that means review websites, comparison websites, and things like that. You'll see the latest poll on the screen. Just a reminder of who we have on the panel. We have Nick Berry, who's a senior litigator at Yes Personal Injury Lawyers, Michael Hannay, the co-founder and CEO of Review Solicitors, Jenny Baldwin, managing director of Essential Legal Services at Slater and Gordon, and Nick Delaney, head of business development at First for Lawyers. I want to start, probably best to target these at, maybe to start with you, Jenny. Just going back to the fundamental question of, have you seen that consumers are engaging in a different way with Slater and Gordon than they were a few years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's very clear, and we recognise that customers are choosing services that now come recommended. They recognise brands a lot more than they did a few years ago, particularly in the legal industry. And they are researching potential companies and people before embarking on a relationship with them. And I think the people side for us is one that's really important, because with some of our senior lawyers, obviously they carry a huge brand themselves, and their reputation often speaks for them. So we have definitely seen clients ask more in-depth questions about service provision, our people, our reputation, our reviews, where we don't do very well. Certainly at the very outset of when clients come and speak to what we call our customer onboarding team. And I think in reaction to that, S&G has really prided ourselves on recruiting the best talent in the industry, making sure that we have the right people internally responding to our clients, whether that's good feedback, passive feedback, or negative and constructive feedback, and continuing to really invest in not just the voice of the customer, but also the voice of the colleague as well.
Nick, you as well. Have you seen similar trends? Are clients more demanding before they agree to instruct you?
Well, I can probably pass comment from a high street practice, because we're obviously much smaller than Slater and Gordon. We found that our clients are coming to us with more knowledge. They've obviously done the background and the research. They have a greater expectation of what they expect from the service they're likely to get from a PI perspective. And we're finding that we're more having to try and manage their expectations when they do come to us. It's the more technologically minded as well. So we're having to change the way we work with clients. They want us on demand. They want at their convenience, and they want whatever mobile options there are. I haven't seen a client in the office now for probably 6 or 7 months. They expect Zoom and Teams, and they are coming to us educated. They know what the firm does. They've been looking at the reviews. They know the people that work here. They know who they want to work with, and they are very specific in what their needs are and how we can actually accommodate them.
It's interesting that the balance of power is very much changing. It would seem that between in the old days, clients would just come in and tug their forelock and say yes sir, no sir, whatever you say, sir.
Absolutely.
Oh, the good old days. I mean, Michael, is that? I suppose it's been for your benefit at Review Solicitors to see this change in power dynamics. So the trust now, rather than being assumed that you can trust the solicitor, trust has to be earned now, I guess, is obviously what Andy was saying as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we've seen obviously increased traffic to the Review Solicitors platform. We've got almost 6 million people a year who are using the platform to do their own research and be able to form their own opinion about which is going to be the right solicitor to instruct. We've also noticed an increase in the amount of time that potential clients are spending on a profile page and reading the reviews about a solicitor. That's gone up around about 25% over the last 24 months. So it's more engaging content because more law firms are collecting reviews. So clients are really taking the time to do that research.
Nick, you go around, you meet a lot of law firms. Do they all recognise how this has changed, or are there some still ploughing, doing it the same way they were doing it 10, 20 years ago?
There's still some doing it as they were 10, 20 years ago. It very much depends on size of the firm, the geography, what areas of law we're focused on, because I think there is a differential between the areas of law that are very much high volume, such as PI, conveyancing, for instance, and those areas which are perhaps lower in volume, have more transactional value to the consumer, such as probate and areas around that. So there is a difference in how firms approach those areas of law. Some firms are still very much more traditionally oriented once you get outside of PI and the more volume transactional types of law. But there is a definite trend of firms becoming more conscious of the review process. The way we handle it with Trustpilot, when we get a 1 or 2 star review, we will go to the law firm. I mean, it goes to our senior management team, so it's dealt with as a serious issue. We go to our law firm, we ask what has gone on with the scenario with this particular claimant. We get a response, and we go back and deal with that response with the consumer. So our firms do engage in that process, so they understand the need to justify to the consumer, why they've been dealt with in a certain way. So there's definite improvement, but there's still some outliers out there that still do it the old-fashioned way, which is not to say they're not good at actually delivering the law. It's just the interaction with the consumer.
Yeah, I guess we all need to think about what we would be looking for. So I mean, I can think of personal experience from a few years ago when I was looking for a law in a very specialist area in education law, and actually it was, I mean, I'm about as informed a consumer as I think you could get. I really struggled actually to identify good who the good lawyers were, and it showed to me how far there is to go. Jenny, in terms of trust signals, there are lots out there. Obviously, there are comparisons, but there are also, sorry, the review websites, but there are other things as well. There's accreditation schemes and things like that. What are the main trust signals, do you think, that you look to send out?
I mean, for us, obviously, the key trust signals are really around the badges. So, like we've mentioned in the webinar earlier, we do use them on our website. We also promote the Trustpilot star rating, which has just hit 4.4. So my team have done fantastic in getting up. It's been a long hog, but we've invested quite heavily in focusing on really listening to that feedback and promoting it. I guess for us, I wouldn't really call it a tactic when talking specifically about the trust badges. For us, we're actually quite proud of them and how much hard work and effort has gone into recognising them, such as the Valuable 500, the Legal 500, etc. And then we've also done a lot of things in the background that we don't perhaps promote as much as we do as the star rating and Google, etc., which is really about investing time and people in our relationship with the LEO. So the legal ombudsman. So obviously it isn't just leaving reviews that you get customer feedback from, whether that be apathy or positive advocacy. We also get complaints like a lot of our other competitors, and we take them extremely seriously as well. And one of the things that we're really proud of over the past 18 months is the continued investment and hard work that we've had in the background that we don't shout about, because many of our consumers probably feel like it's a given that we do that, but I'm not sure other people do it as much, and certainly haven't for the past few years. And we're now really happy to have that great relationship and use that as one of our trust builders and our trust signals as well.
That's a really good point, because one of the issues that the regulators are looking at is publishing complaints records, things like that. Now, it's always been one of the issues has been a firm of your size is always obviously going to generate more complaints than a firm of Nick's size. So but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing any worse a job. So they are looking at contextualizing, but maybe this is Michael. Can you see in time review comparison, well, maybe more comparison websites and review integrating this kind of information, these other indicators? Certainly the regulators, they don't just want consumer reviews, do they? They want complaints records, maybe even insurance claims records, all sorts of things that could go into a profile.
Sure. So, I mean, I think the kind of Legal Services Board and the SRA have alluded to the fact that there is other data out there that could potentially be used, but the problem is contextualizing it. So obviously larger firms will have more complaints naturally. So it's how you portray that information to the consumer at the early point in the client journey. I suppose the issue is that most people, they don't wake up in the morning, apart from, solicitors, they don't wake up in the morning and actually think about the law. They're at the point where, it's almost like a just-in-time delivery model for them, where as soon as they realize that they've got a legal issue, that's when they'll take to Google, that's when they'll start looking for things. So any information that's presented to them needs to be very, very clear and easy to understand, to indicate how good the firm is. Because I mean, even kind of Lexel, it's great, we all know what it is, but as a consumer, you don't really understand what it is and how important it is when you're initially looking for a solicitor, and deciding between a firm that has Lexel and doesn't have Lexel isn't really a consideration that most people think about. So reviews are the number one thing that we all understand. We're using them when we're deciding about hotels. There is obviously the possibility to start using other forms of data, but it's down to how we kind of put that into practice.
Yeah, maybe I'll just go back to you on Jenny on that. But all those other badges that you can get, accreditation schemes, Lexel, Legal 500, like you say, Chambers. I suppose as a consumer, you see them on the bottom of the website, you don't know what they are, but they look good. I mean, how much of an impact do things like that have?
Sorry, was that myself?
Sorry.
That was for Jenny.
Yeah. To Jenny?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I think it definitely does. And I think going back to the earlier point, if you were looking for a day-to-day service or purchase, then maybe it wouldn't have, and I guess the value is a lot different as well. So if I was looking for, I don't know, a new top or a new work dress, then I probably wouldn't look at badges, I wouldn't look at Trustpilot reviews. If it was, below a certain amount, I'd just purchase it. But I think when you're looking for legal services, it's an accumulation of different things that start on the website and that start on Google. And when you do your search, which is these trust badges, which is the recognition of accolades, affiliations, bios have been absolutely huge for us. So we've seen a real increase in feedback from clients that we speak to, and also traffic to certain parts of our website when we launched independent bios of some of our key members of staff. So if you go into our website and you type a name in, you will get their picture, you will get a little bit of their background, what they're really passionate about, and their experience. And that's another one that has really improved the traffic that we've seen go onto the website and then ultimately come into the organisation for help.
I mean, Andy, do you have any views on these other trust signals you can use?
No, I think what Jenny just summed up there. People buy it from people, don't they? So actually adding, it's striking a balance of telling consumers what you're good at and having that sort of independent validation, but also trying to. I think one of the things we see over time is that people are a little bit fearful of lawyers and solicitors, and it's outside of their comfort zone of what they want. So actually presenting these people as normal human beings, as it were, with interests that are probably similar to you, will help engage that audience with you. So yeah, it's not just about all your successes and things like that. It's creating a brand personality as well that supports what your wider message.
There is a question about how important are Legal 500 and Chambers specifically. I guess they don't do any harm. People don't know what they are, but they kind of sound, the fact that you're citing them makes them sound like there's something worth citing, I suppose. They don't do any harm. Whether they're worth all the effort that goes into making into the entries is perhaps another question. Yeah, have any view, Andy, on Legal 500 and Chambers specifically?
Again, I can't speak for how much work needs to go to get it, but it's an accreditation. And sometimes the concern with some of these accreditations, and I'm not talking about any in particular, is does the consumer understand it? Is it a trust mark that actually people understand when they're approaching a firm? What makes that different? So I think it comes down to the individual firms to need to be able to market in some way what benefit that brings to the consumer.
Yeah,
so
because you can assume, we can assume that consumers don't know what Legal 500 or Chambers are. But anyway, we've got quite a few other questions.
Sorry, Neil, just to add to that, I think it's fair that isn't restricted to the legal industry. If I'm looking for a plumber, an electrician, different services, I don't know what all their accreditations mean, but the visual aesthetics of seeing that on their website and the association of reputation, reliability and trust, whether you understand what Chambers means or whether it's expensive or time consuming, I think is quite relevant.
Yeah, no, I take that, although of course they're not technically accreditation schemes, they're just directories.
Badges, yeah.
But anyway, let's get on to reviews. A good question here that sets us off nicely is, and maybe Nick, maybe have your view on this, but when encouraging clients to leave reviews, is it best to focus on just one platform? Because obviously Michael would just say, yes, just concentrate on review solicitors. So maybe Nick, do you have a view on that?
Which Nick?
Oh, sorry, you Nick Berry, sorry.
That's all right, not a problem. We find that we don't just stick to one review site. As a high street firm, we find that Google is just as effective as other review sites, especially when we're trying to promote ourselves locally. Everybody will have seen there's a small map when you actually do a search for solicitors in certain areas. And we find that by getting ourselves further up that ranking, has been quite effective for us, especially with conversions of local clients. But we also find that more clients are actually going to the solicitor review websites to get that additional independent validation that the decision they're making to reinforce their choice. So I think they're both equally as important.
There's quite a lot out there. That's the issue, isn't it? So how, I mean, and it's not just the direct review ones. There's Glassdoor, which is about where you as an employer. So how do you keep on top of all the various platforms?
We tend to use software and just keep it all in one place, because otherwise you just lose track. It also helps you listen to what's being said. So it's not just the reviews, but also other social media. So you can see where the brand is being mentioned, and you can engage with clients across a range of platforms, not just in relation to reviews being left.
I mean, Michael, in fairness, presumably you wouldn't say just concentrate on one, because you can, because there are so many out there and others of a similar standing to yours.
Well, I'd love to turn around and say everyone just come and collect on Review Solicitors. That would be great. But no, so I mean, we understand that different consumers will see different review sites, and it's important to ensure that you have positive reviews on places that clients are looking. So Review Solicitors appears very prominently in Google search results. If you're searching for the name of a firm or the name of the firm plus the word reviews, generally we're directly as a number 2 result for most firms. One thing that we've done is we've actually allowed other review sites to put their reviews onto Review Solicitors. So we have integrations with the likes of FIFO, Google Reviews, Trustpilot, and various others. So if firms are collecting reviews, they can add them all into their Review Solicitors profile, and they can do some quite cool things with actually responding to those reviews as well. And so you're effectively managing them all from one place. So it is important to ensure that the points where consumers are seeing, so Google reviews are very important because they appear in search results, they appear in local search results, in maps. You can actually use Review Solicitors to collect reviews on Google reviews as well.
Enough of the advert. But could you just talk about how you deal with people who are complaining about the reviews? It remains the case, and research shows that solicitors are still very wary of fake reviews. So what is your approach, and is there an industry kind of standard approach?
Well, I mean, it depends on the review platform. Every review site's got its own rules as such. With Google, it's very much like the Wild West. I know a lot of firms who have had bad experiences of trying to get obviously fake Google reviews removed. So we take the approach that Review Solicitors remains impartial, and we give firms the ability to be able to flag reviews that are defamatory or reviews that are not from a client. Obviously, with it being a very litigious market, you do generally tend to find that people on the other side of a transaction will who are losing, you're representing your client, someone else will come on and leave the firm a bad review. We don't tolerate anything like that. So we actually give the control back to the firm to instantly remove those reviews. And then it's down, for example, to the client to come back to say, actually, I was a client. Here's my letter of instruction, and they have to provide that in order for their review to be reinstated. So it's really dependent on the platform. I understand the fears that law firms have with actually putting themselves out there and putting their head above the parapet to say, I want to collect reviews in a public environment and my reputation's on the line here. So it's all about going with a review platform that you feel that you've got that control with, I think.
I'm conscious of time, but Jenny, how do you approach well, first of all, the reviews you think may be malicious, and then more generally negative reviews?
Yeah, so we respond to all negative reviews. So we have the Trustpilot and Google as our 2 main and most tenured platforms. So we do reply to all negative reviews where we can identify the client. Obviously, with these types of platforms, if they don't name an individual or name a team or give any kind of information publicly, there may be times where we just don't know who they are from their username on the platform. Now, if that is the case, we then proactively send contact details to directly contact our internal client care team. So everybody gets an opportunity to speak to us, to allow us to correct it, to apologise, or even just to understand what the issue might have been and the dissatisfaction. In terms of getting reviews removed, we don't often push for that, because everybody is entitled to their opinion, and we actually take a really positive and proactive approach in wanting to get that feedback, hence why we have a lot of different mechanisms that we tap into. The only time that we would ever consider that is where we have got a particularly demeaning comment or derogatory comment, and we're able to categorically prove that they are not a client, and therefore it's more of a smear campaign. That would be the only time that I would ever condone publicly or privately trying to get a review removed.
Andy, just one kind of couple of technical, or one technical question in the Q&A. Should we be physically typing out questions using question marks as headings in our content to rank on Google?
I think it's a case of a mixture. What you need to do is ensure what that you are writing and producing reads as naturally as possible. So if you are writing an FAQ section, yes, write it as a question with a question mark. It's grammatically correct. There is nothing out there. There's no sort of algorithm that says that unless you write the question with a question mark, it's not going to get picked up by Google. Google is looking at the answer to determine that a question has been asked, but from the consumer's perspective, you've got to try and make it feel as natural as possible. So yes, do, if you are writing an FAQ section, yeah, what is no win, no fee is a statement, but it's also a question. It depends where you're placing it in your website.
And one other question about marketing tips for a new firm, or maybe just one that hasn't entered the world of reviews yet. I'm sure there are plenty of established firms that haven't really gone into that. How do you start building up? Is it just a question of time that you just have to encourage clients to do it, and then eventually you'll have enough that people start taking them seriously?
It is, yeah. I mean, so if you've established a firm, you're going to get a footfall of clients very quickly, depending on what your sort of legal practice is. I know personal injury and things can take time, but it's just been on it from the start. You'll find, I like to think that people are starting firms have probably taken a certain client base with them so that they can quickly get it. You don't have to have, we've got 15,000 reviews. It's taken us 7 years to get there. You don't have to have that many. You can just start with more detailed overviews so that you're getting from clients in the first place.
We're up against time. I just want one last question. Maybe Nick Berry could start first, and also for Jenny. In terms of marketing, can you give some idea of the kind of marketing that you're going to be focusing on in the next year? Is there any kind of great change that or shift in how you're approaching marketing?
No, we're focusing on brand awareness for the next 12 months, but more through increasing the size of our audience and audience reach by profiling existing clients and trying to be very specific in our targeting of new groups through our existing client social media networks, and just building our brand awareness that way.
Yeah, same for S&G. So really looking at content, blogs, information, transparency. We do have some pricing on the website, but there's a lot more that we could do to open up transparency for our clients. And then obviously internally continuing to work with our external partners on how we get more feedback from the interactions that we have. So nothing kind of transformational, but just making sure the basics are right, and that we are certainly ensuring that we've got the right information at the right time in the right means for the client as well.
On pricing, do you go beyond the requirements? Obviously, there are only certain areas of law where you are required by the SRA to publish prices. Are you going beyond that? I mean, it may be that the SRA eventually goes beyond that anyway.
Yeah, so we do, but not massively. So we are very clear on where it's no win, no fee deduction rates that are on our website. And then we also quote where we have any practice that works from an hourly rate as well.
I think we better call it a day. There are lots more questions I could ask and was going to ask, but this is a subject that will run, and I imagine we'll be back here next year with the 9th white paper, Andy, to to keep this discussion going, and of course on legal futures throughout the year. And please also do join us at our conference, Legal Futures Innovation Conference next month, which you'll see on the on our website. So thank you all for your time. As I said, you'll be getting an email later with the link to the white paper and a recording of this webinar. Thank you all for your time, and hope you have a good day. Thank you very much.